My name is Reagan Copeland. I am Duval Schools Family Engagement Supervisor and proud to lead this Parent Academy program, which is a service to all families in Duval. Our goal ultimately to make sure our families have the latest and greatest information to help their children succeed. That's what we're in the business for. If you're not already following us on social media, I encourage you to do so just because we announce on a daily basis the next course that's coming up, the next opportunity that's available, and everything we offer our families is free with the goal of helping you. So follow us on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, whatever your favorite social media is, and we are Family Engagement Duval. So check us out and you will be aware of everything that's coming along. All right, that's a wrap from me. And now I'm going to hand the camera and the mic over to our facilitator today, Miss Twig. Take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So welcome, and we're going to be focusing on 5th grade science. Of course, your students are learning science in K through 5, but this is why this is so important in 5th grade, because they will be taking a state test in 5th grade. And we always like to remind parents and teachers and everyone that is familiar with the state test that this 5th grade science test, unlike ELA and math, they only have one 5th grade science test in K through 5. But it is a 6-year test because it is covering K through 5 standards. So what your student is learning in 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, even kindergarten, 1st grade is just as important for them to be prepared for this test once they get to 5th grade. So I'm going to go over some specifics regarding the test. Who is taking it? Again, it is just for grade 5 students in elementary. When is the test? The state testing window will be May 1st to the 31st. Now, your school will inform you, the parents or the students, of your testing dates. The teachers and the administrators of your school will get to choose when they would like to implement that test and when they're taking it. So they may be taking science first, science last, or in the middle of ELA and math. It will just depend upon their testing schedule. Most all schools already have their testing schedule ready, so if you reach out to your admin or your teacher, they should be able to tell you when they plan on taking this test. So what to expect? So it is an online test. Last year was the first time that this test was online. In previous years, grade 5 was always a paper test, so they were answering it with paper and pencil, and it was 2 days. So last year was the first time that it was an online test, and it was 1 day. Now we're going one step further, and not only is it an online test, but now your student is going to be taking an online computer adaptive test for grade 5. I'm going to give you more information about what a computer adaptive test is, what to expect, and kind of answer any questions you may have regarding the computer adaptive test, because it can get a little confusing, especially since your students are taking adaptive testing in ELA and math, but that's throughout the year because they take PM state tests. For science, they're actually going to be taking the adaptive test question by question on this one test instead of throughout the year. And again, I'll explain this a little bit better, but they will have 1 day to take this test. They will have 160 minutes with a break at 80 minutes, but we'll talk about specifics on the fact sheet because the students will take it in 1 day, but they'll have as long as it takes for them to complete it. They can range between 48 and 54 items on the test. It will just be dependent on your student's algorithm and pattern. And the test is broken up by different items of complexity. So 10 to 20% of the test will be low. Questions, moderate, will be 60 to 80% of the test, and then those high complexity questions are going to be 10 to 20%. So your students are going to be seeing that middle, that moderate, more than they will be the low and the high. So we always want to make sure that they know more information than just those low complexity questions. So let's dive a little deeper. On the FLDOE site, and of course I'll give you that link at the end, but you can just type in FLDOE into your Google or your search engine on your computer, and you are able to access this fact sheet. Also, I can provide this fact sheet to you, no problem at all. I'll give you my information and I can send you whatever you need. Again, just to reiterate, it's 160 minutes with an 80-minute break, but the difference is the students can continue to work up to the length of the school day. So if your student is struggling to complete it in that 160 minutes, that's okay. They're going to have the time to complete it. But we do want to make sure that they're taking their time, but also making sure that we're not skipping too many things or we're flagging too many things and going back. And we're going to talk about how we can't skip questions. We can flag them, and that's having to do with computer adaptive tests. So I'm going to speak on that as well. But the science test is also broken down not just by complexity levels of the questions, but in reporting categories. So throughout the year, your student is learning science, and they're going to learn about the nature of science, which is one reporting category, earth and space science, physical science, and life science. So that is what's broken down on the test. 17% of the questions are going to be nature of science. 29% will be earth and space. 29% will be physical, and life sciences 25%. Our students seem to struggle with the nature of science, and I'll kind of go into that as well, and different ways and different things that you can do to help your student with the nature of science questions. But after they've taken the test, your student will receive a level 1, a level 2, 3, 4, or 5. This is not changed in the way that your student is passing if they receive a level 3, 4, or 5, and not passing from a level 1 or 2. So we really want our students to make sure they're on that level 3, a level 4, or 5. Now, in the past, there was a specific scale score based on the level your student was in. But because these computer adaptive testing is going to put your student on a different pathway, your student might have a different scale score with their level. And I'm going to kind of explain that, and so will the video that I'm going to show you. But it will let you know that if your student is a level 3 and got a 200, but maybe you're comparing it to another student who got a level 4, but maybe their scale score was 200 as well, it's because they were on different pathways. And again, we'll talk about that. I just want that to be clear. You will see this on the fact sheet, but we're always really looking at the overall achievement levels for your student. So let's go ahead. I'm going to play this video, and I'm pretty sure I clicked everything I was supposed to make sure that you can hear this. And if not, someone hopefully will let me know. But this is going to talk to you about what the computer adaptive testing is. I will apologize. The gentleman who is doing this is a little bit monotone. It's not very long, but I promise you it's going to be really beneficial, and it's helpful if you have students in ELA and math and you haven't been able to see exactly how their computer adaptive testing is working as well. Hopefully everyone can hear.
Welcome to this video on computer adaptive testing and how it works with Florida's statewide assessments. This video will provide an overview of how computer adaptive testing works and address the following questions. What is a computer adaptive test, also known as CAT? What does it mean for a CAT to be standards-based? What is the role of the adaptive algorithm in selecting items for each student? And how are CATs scored? So what is a computer adaptive test? A CAT is a test in which a computer algorithm selects each test question or set of questions, based on the test blueprint, and sometimes on the student's performance on previously answered items. An adaptive test is tailored to the student's ability, which is based on whether the student successfully responded to the previous item. This tailored approach increases the accuracy of resulting test scores, especially for very low and high ability students, since the student sees only the test questions most appropriate for them. Each time a student answers a question, their response helps to determine the next question or set of questions that will be presented to the student. Some items are adapted as sets, such as item sets associated with reading passages. The difficulty of the test will adjust to each student's skills, providing a better measure of what each student knows and can do. It is important to note that regardless of the test difficulty determined by the student's ability, Each test attempt matches the test blueprint. This video explains how computer adaptive tests work for FAST, Pre-K to Grade 2 Reading and Mathematics, Grades 3 to 10 ELA Reading, Grades 3 to 8 Mathematics, Grades 5 and 8 Science, and End of Course, or EOC assessments, in Algebra 1, Geometry, Biology 1, U.S. History, and Civics. What are the advantages of computer adaptive tests? Adaptive tests provide several benefits to educators and students. First, adaptive tests are more precise in measuring the ability of students who struggle, and those who excel. In other words, they provide better information across a wider range of student performance, compared to tests with a fixed set of questions. Second, adaptive tests are more secure, meaning that it is more difficult for students to copy or cheat, because the items administered to students are generally different. Even when students are administered the same item, the order and location of the presentation varies. Lastly, adaptive tests are more engaging to students, because items are chosen to match the student's level of understanding and skill. This makes the test more interesting and challenging. So how does a computer adaptive test work? Delivering an adaptive test depends on the following: the test blueprint, bank of test questions, adaptive algorithm, and Florida CAT specifications. The test blueprint defines the characteristics and content of the items that will be delivered. The blueprint ensures that each student sees a range of items that cover the standards for the subject being tested. The bank of test questions is where the algorithm will draw test questions from, to provide to the students. The bank contains items that represent a varying level of knowledge and skills, to accurately measure each student's achievement of the state standards. The algorithm refers to the computer program that selects the items for students, based on a sequence of procedures, or rules, established in the CAT specifications. Florida CAT specifications set the rules. For instance, Florida CATs allow students to revisit answered items, as students must select a response to an item or set of items, before moving to the next item or item set.
I'm just going to pause it because I want to just elaborate a bit on this, because this is something that our students aren't used to. So on this computer adaptive test, your student will have to answer every single question before they can move on to the next question. That doesn't mean they can't go back and change their answer. It just means they can't skip a question to go to the next question, because every time they answer a question, it's guiding them onto an algorithm as to what the next question will be. So they have to answer the best they can. So when I said they have all day to take this test, they do. So we want them to not skip anything or just click an answer. We really want them to try their best on every single question, because they can't move on unless they've answered that question. I'm going to continue.
For grades 3 to 10 tests, students will not see items that are above or below the grade level content being assessed. Let's take a closer look at the importance of the test blueprint and adaptive algorithm. The test blueprint is an important component of an adaptive test, because the blueprint defines the characteristics and content of the items that will be delivered. Florida's statewide assessments measure student performance against Florida's academic standards, and these standards measure what students need to know, understand, and be able to do. A standards-based computer adaptive test follows the same test blueprint for all students. The grades 3 to 10 assessments are adaptive within grade level standards. Therefore, they will not move into other grades for harder or easier items. The adaptive algorithm is the computer program that determines the items that are administered to students on an adaptive test. The algorithm is designed to meet a complex set of content requirements, and to adjust item difficulty to adapt to the student's current performance. How does the adaptive algorithm work? When the test begins, students are presented with the first item of the test. The algorithm assigns a question that matches the test blueprint and is of medium difficulty, or, for some CATs, is based on a student's performance on a previous test attempt. After the student responds to the first item, The algorithm identifies a subset of items to satisfy the blueprint requirements. The algorithm then identifies a further subset of items with difficulties to maximize the assessment of the student's ability. Finally, it randomly selects the best items from the subset it identified for the student. This process continues until the final item on the test is answered. The test ends when the test blueprint has been met.
I'm going to pause just to kind of give you a summary of what he means. Your student will start with, every student will start on a medium level, moderate level. And as they answer that question, based on how they do, if they get it wrong, they might go to a lower question or a different pathway. If they get it right, it might take them to a different question that might be higher complexity on a different pathway. And they could go up and down, but as they're answering these questions, that's what's telling the algorithm which question would be next. So as you can see, they cannot skip the question, but they're using your student, the way that your student is performing on the test, to give them their next question. All right.
And the student has answered the maximum number of items. The test is long enough for students to be presented with test content that allows them to demonstrate their true ability. Although a student may start with easier questions based on previous test performance, if he or she has increased knowledge, skills, and abilities, the test will adapt appropriately to allow the student to move up one or more achievement levels. This is also why it is important for students to provide their best answer to each question to receive an accurate score. Now that you have seen how a computer adaptive test works, let's look at how they are scored. The score is based on the difficulty of the administered test items, and the student's pattern of correct and incorrect responses to those items, which is known as pattern scoring. Pattern scoring depends on the difficulty of the questions the student answered correctly or incorrectly, rather than raw scores or percent correct. Students may correctly answer items above their ability, and may incorrectly answer items below their ability. However, this pattern is less likely to occur as a student progresses further into the test, since items presented later in the test more closely match the student's ability. A student's score depends on the difficulty of the items answered correctly or incorrectly, and does not depend on raw scores or percent correct. So, the student who correctly answered more challenging questions will receive a higher score. For this reason, comparing raw scores between students' tests can be misleading. Although student A may have answered more items correctly than student B may receive a higher score if student B's correct answers were in response to more challenging items. We hope that this video has given you a better understanding.
Okay, so hopefully that kind of gave more information about how computer adaptive testing works. So even if your student has fewer questions, that doesn't necessarily mean that their score will be lower. It could be that they answered more difficult questions, so they had maybe less questions to answer and their score might be higher. So it's not that raw score. You can't compare them to other students because every student is going to have a different pathway. All right. Okay, so just some frequently asked questions. This again, I'm going to give you the link to where this is all located so you can rewatch that video if you'd like. I know, again, it was a long video-ish, and he gave us a lot of information. So if you need to kind of refresh yourself, I will tell you, you can go to FLDOE and find all this under science. And then of course, there's frequently asked questions, and this is where we speak about how the algorithm works. Not only that, but why is it important to answer every single question to the best of your ability. And then on top of that, you can flag a question and go back, and it also talks about how that would affect your score. If you answer a question correct, but you flag it, and you go back and you change your score, that will not disrupt the algorithm because you've already taken the test. You're just going back. Okay, so it could just give you different points. So you might go down a little bit on the score level, but I'm sorry, on the scale score. So it will just depend on where your students are on their pathway already. But they have to, again, answer every single question. So tell them when they're taking this test, don't get frustrated if you don't know it. Really try your best, answer the best of your ability, and then flag it, and you can come back and work on it some more. All right, so I do want to just give you some examples of what your students will be seeing on the test based on the different reporting categories. I'm not going to read you through every single one, but I do want to explain what you kind of will see. So for example, the nature of science. Nature of science is usually going to be the practice of science and the characteristics of science knowledge. This is really your students' processing of scientific information. So observations, collecting evidence, doing procedures, analyzing data, things like that. So our students always are going to get charts. And if you're wondering, okay, does my student feel comfortable with charts? A lot of our students don't, because they have chart anxiety is what I call it. When they look at a chart sometimes they get a little bit nervous as to what that chart is supposed to be representing. So making sure that they're reading the question stem to its fullest, that they're not getting nervous about this chart, because I promise you, your student in 5th grade has taken a DMA 1, a DMA 2, and a DMA 3. We have created that to be a mock of some sort, DMA 2 and DMA 3, where they're going to see charts, they're going to see models, they're going to see graphs, so that way they aren't having that anxiety of seeing them on the state test. They're used to it. They're going to feel comfortable seeing these tests. So when they have to analyze it, this isn't new for them. All right, I promise you this isn't new. These beefy questions that they're going to see, this is absolutely normal, and they've had that practice throughout the year. So just make sure when you're going over these types of questions, tell your student, you can even practice with them with a chart and say, what is this chart trying to tell me? Ask them questions about the chart, and making sure that your student is reading what the question is actually asking, because sometimes the question is not even asking anything about the chart. Maybe it's just saying, why is the chart important to scientists? What your students should know, well, that collects data, and that's data that they need for their scientific collection, right? So it just depends on each question, but I want to let you know that let your students know to practice using these charts, and they will have that stuff in the resources that I'm going to refer to at the end. Next is physical science. Physical science is a really difficult reporting category, but the great part is this can be all stuff that your students do hands-on in the classroom and should be doing hands-on in the classroom. So it covers properties of matter, changes in matter, forms of energy, and forces and changes in motion. So a lot of this is measuring, comparing befores and afters, physical changes versus chemical changes. And so you might get a question like this where they actually have to observe the picture and tell them what's actually happening. So this is the observation. They're observing this picture and really giving them feedback based on their prior knowledge of what a chemical change is versus a physical change. So making sure our student is really looking at these pictures and really process of elimination through the possible answers, okay? Next is Earth and Space Science. Earth and Space Science is really a difficult reporting category to teach because we can't pull the moon, the planets, the sun out of the sky and be hands-on. So we really rely on models and drawings for this. So you'll see a lot of questions that have pictures of the planets or parts of our solar system, stars, things like that, that they'll ask questions about. So really getting your student to feel comfortable. Also, a great way to practice with your students, and I've done this with my students just walking to class, is going outside, and if I look at the moon and say, okay, what phase of the moon is this in? So that's just practice with them without having a test in front of them or a piece of paper, and really kind of talking about what they're seeing, because science is real. It's every day. So that's really helpful that you can ask them questions about what's around them. But again, Earth and Space Science, you're going to see things about planets, moon, solar system. You're also going to see things about weather patterns, climate change. You're going to see things about weathering and erosion, rocks and minerals. So it really does cover a lot of things, but expect to see charts, expect to see models, expect to see visuals. Next is life science. This is the last reporting category. Our students really tend to love life science because it is animals, right? They love animals. They like to watch videos on animals. They like to create animals. But this gets even deeper into not just animals, but we're going to go into flow of energy, organization of them, living things, what they need, comparing humans, plants, animals together, adaptations, right? So a lot of things that they're going to focus on. But we don't touch a ton in reproduction, so don't worry there. We really just talk about reproduction of a plant, which is a 4th grade standard. And then we do not go over the actual organs of the reproduction on humans. But we do talk about the brain, the lungs, the heart, things like that. So life science covers a lot, but this is something really great and easy for you to teach outside with your student because it's life science. It's around them. You can ask them questions about it. Okay, next, once your student has taken the test, and I've created a QR code and also included the link for this, this is a really helpful tip for your students and for you to, once they've gotten the assessment and you've seen how they've performed, they'll be able to tell you in each reporting category what the results mean. So if your student was a below expectation, so if they were a 1 or 2, this is what it means they're able to do in nature science. If they got a 3 on grade level, this is what it means that they're able to do in nature of science. If they got a 4 or 5 above expectation, this is what they know, and this is what they did on that test. Now, not only does it tell you how they did or what they knew on the test, but it tells you the next step. So as a parent, what do you need to do to help your student get to that next step? So it even includes that. So I've provided the QR code for that. And again, the link here, you can take a picture of it, but this is really helpful. So once you get that results back, you can see how you can best help your student moving forward. And then some of the resources that you all have available right now, your student has available, whether it be at home or in the classroom. All of your students in K through 5 have textbooks. All right, they're McGraw-Hill Science textbooks. But 5th grade only has an online platform. So if your student is home and in their blended learning folder and wants to access, or you want to access the book online or any of the resources online, you can do so. Also, Study Island is an online platform that they use in school, but you can also use it outside of school. It's in that blended learning folder. It's really them reading information and practicing questions, which is really what we want them to do. And teachers can assign that to them. And then floridastudents.org, they have tutorials, questions, activities. This is free. Your students also have access to this via the blended learning, but you can get on floridastudents.org and maybe you feel like you want a little bit of background knowledge on something you're about to review with your student. This is a great way for you to watch a quick tutorial to give you that background knowledge because, you know, 5th grade science has been a while for a lot of us, so it is nice to have a little like refresh when needed. And then finally, student interactive journals. K through 5, all students should be creating their interactive journals. And in 5th grade specifically, this is where all of their notes are taken. This is where their aligned investigations are completed and some of their assessments and vocabulary. So towards the end of the remediation or towards the end of this year, when you're about to, like maybe the week they're about to take the test, you could always ask your student to bring home that interactive science journal to study with, because that's really their study guide. It's everything that they've done throughout the year. It's all the information they need, and you can use that to study with them. And so let's talk about some other stuff you could do. So you can use those science resources to review the content with your students. You can practice using those SSA style questions. So I kind of went over some different questions with you, and you can get those from the book. You can also get them in Study Island and floridastudents.org. And then you can continue, if science homework is coming home, make sure your students are doing that home learning if your if your student is bringing that home. Not all schools are doing home learning right now because it is remediation, but if they are, that could be something. And you can always ask your teacher to send home some work, or if they don't have any work available, a study guide, because we do have those available for you online. And if you would like the study guide, I'm going to give you my information so you can reach out to me if you would like something to utilize for fluency while you're at home. So I kept referring to where you can find the video, the fact sheet, and so on. You're going to go to www.fldoe.org, and this will take you to where that video is. You'll just have to look under the science assessment, fact sheets, as well as the frequently asked questions about computer adaptive testing. You can also go to DCPS website, and that is where you can find the science department and more. Talk to Team Duval, and then accountability and assessment and data. If you want to figure out where your student stands on their last test, you can go and have them access Performance Matters and get that information so you know where your student stands. Okay, so if there, I did a pretty good job to leave some time for questions, but again, my name's Madeline Twig, twigm@duvalschools.org. I believe I'm the only Twig in the district, so if you would like a study guide, or you have some follow-up questions, or you're confused about something, please don't hesitate to reach out. Just send me a quick email, and I can answer as best as I possibly can. Of course, we only know what the state tells us, so if you have something that I can't answer, I will try to kind of help you and assist you in the best way I can. But thank you guys.